Calling to order the Municipality of Monroeville's Citizens Night and Agenda Setting Meeting for Tuesday, December 3rd, 2024. It is approximately 7 p.m. If we'd all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. Can I have a roll call, please?
Mayor Griesbach.
Here.
Mr. Hizzy.
Here.
Mr. Poach.
Here.
Mr. Stevenson.
Here.
Mr. Pruitt.
Here.
Mr. Adams.
Here.
Mr. Williams.
Here.
Mr. Biondo. Mr. Graziani.
Here.
Mr. Ratcher.
Here.
Ms. Rock.
Here.
Mr. Hugus.
Here.
Mr. Sedlak.
Here.
Mr. Weldon.
Here. Understood. Okay, welcome, everyone. This is our agenda setting meeting and our Citizens Night meeting. We're going to have a comment period here in a moment for any municipal item. We always ask that residents and taxpayers keep their comments to a 5-minute time limit. We also are going to have a comment period, and I misspoke earlier whenever I was talking to people beforehand. There is a conditional use public hearing. There will be public hearing for one of the items, but that's separate, and we'll talk about it as we get closer. But what I'm going to do is open up the floor for Citizens Night. This is a public comment period on any municipal items. So is anyone from that's in attendance that would like to address council? Now would be your chance. Once you get up here, you can sign in if you haven't already, and then we'll ask for you to state your name for the record. And once again, we always ask that you keep your comments to a 5-minute time period.
Signed in. Bruce Walker with the Monroeville Historical Society. I want to thank the municipality and the municipal workers for the fine job everybody did for the Christmas tree lighting event held a week ago. And thanks for all.
Great.
That's
Thanks so much,
under-
Bruce. It
that's
was
under
a
budget.
great
Call.
event. Thank you for all your hard
Great
work in the Historical Society and all the performers that showed up for the event. It was a very nice event. Thank you. I'll leave the floor open for Citizens Night. Okay, we're going to close Citizens Night. And we have a conditional use public hearing. This would be the appropriate time to do it.
Sure, yeah.
Council, this is for 24-3-C Northern Pike Partners LLC conditional use approval. Mr. Graziani, please.
Yeah, the applicant, Northern Pike Partners LLC, is requesting a conditional use approval pursuant to Article 5, Section 504.FFFF Therapeutic Massage Facility of the Monroeville zoning ordinance number 2779 to permit the operation of a therapeutic massage business, Gin Lee Body Works. The property is located at 4301 Northern Pike, formerly McGinnis Sisters, and identified as tax parcel 856-S-076 in the Boulevard zoning district. We have an applicant this evening.
Is the applicant here?
No.
Sir Wielden, the applicant? No?
They were notified of the meeting. I assumed they would be here this evening.
Okay.
Want a motion to table?
Yeah,
I make a motion to table.
recommend you table it. They're just
Okay.
gonna have to wait.
Second.
Should we get comment or no? Don't worry about it.
No,
Okay.
not until
Motion
they've
second.
done their
We have a-
presentation.
Second.
Very good. We have a motion and a second to table that item. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So this item is tabled, and therefore it won't, well, this is a non-voting meeting in general. There's no votes taken at tonight's meeting. We are working, once again, we call this our agenda-setting meeting, so we're setting the agenda for what we're going to vote on next Tuesday, a week from today. So by this being tabled, this item will not be voted on at all next week.
No, the hearing should be scheduled for table till next month.
The hearing
The
table. for next
public
month.
hearing, yeah,
Correct, but there
Yeah.
won't be a vote on
Correct,
this item.
correct.
Next week.
right.
Council, moving through the agenda. Then I have an executive session announcement. The council conducted an executive session on Tuesday, December 3rd, from approximately 6:15 to 7 p.m. for matters pertaining to legal, personnel, and/or real estate. Council legislative action, if any, shall be taken at next Tuesday's December 10th council meeting. Council, for your consideration for next week would be the minutes. Now, Sharon, it's just the one.
Yes. I'm just working on the Citizens Night and the work session.
Understood. So, council, the council budget meeting of October 30th, 2024, the minutes for that meeting. Any questions or comments, council? Very good. Reports of our tax collections. Any questions about those this evening? Hearing none. List of bills and budget transfers. Council, any questions or comments? No. And the current payroll report. Questions or comments? Very good. Hearing none. None of these items will be voted on this evening. Once again, they will be considered and voted on next Tuesday, December 10th. Item 6 is what is the conditional use, which we're going to move over. That is tabled. And we have 24-6-SUB PZ Miracle Limited Partnership. This is the Miracle Mile Shopping Center, preliminary and final subdivisions. Mr. Graziani.
Yeah, so next week, council will be considering the applicant is requesting preliminary and final subdivision approval to subdivide tax parcel 743M-2275 into 3 commercial lots in the Boulevard zoning district. Lot 1 with an area of 0.877 acres, Lot 2 with an area of 1.214 acres, and Lot 3 with an area of 23.275 acres. The property address is 4100 William Penn Highway, Miracle Mile Shopping Center, and the 2 parcels are one for the Bank of America, the new building that's just been constructed, and Chick-fil-A.
Very good. And the applicant representation is here.
And as the applicant gets set up, the planning commission recommended approval with conditions.
Very good. Welcome. If you could just state your name for the record.
Yes, my name is Tom Center from Two Engineers. I'm the planner working on the job.
Hi, Tom. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Hi, Victoria Becker, attorney at Reed Smith, counsel for the applicant.
Thank you. Welcome, Victoria. Okay, if you want to, Tom, if you want to just go forward on your presentation and give us an idea of what's going on.
Sure. This is regarding the Miracle Mile development on Route 22. And the applicant would like to subdivide out, he's proposing to subdivide out 2 parcels. Just for, he has no interest in selling any of them, just for added flexibility, you know. And one is the Bank of America parcel, and the other, well, that's Lot 1. Lot 2 is the Chick-fil-A parcel.
So are they currently separated, or are you just trying to subdivide those out?
We're trying to subdivide them out as like out parcels. Right now, they're part of the overall parcel. I believe PNC Bank and, is it the building at the corner, right at Strashin and.
Was the bike shop, it's GNC
Yeah,
and
yeah, the
AT&T.
GNC. Yeah, those 2 parcels would be previously separated out, but this would just separate out 2 more parcels from the overall lot.
Okay. Any concerns from staff?
No concerns. It meets the ordinance. They have frontage along 22, and they meet the lot size requirements.
Okay.
For both of them?
Correct.
Count.
water, and the water retention, I believe, was extensive also.
Well, that's not necessary for the subdivision, but for the Bank of America job, that was a new land development, and they did put in an underground tank for that job, yes.
Great, thank you.
Was that just based on their building size or the actual parcel?
The entire parcel.
Okay.
Yeah. There's currently very little stormwater detention at the Miracle Mile, so any of the new developments going in have to meet stormwater requirements.
Okay. And subdivisions doesn't
No,
impact that?
Correct, yeah, you can just subdivide parcels. It's land development that triggers the stormwater ordinance.
Understood.
Yep. Thank you.
Council, Mr. Williams.
Yeah, you're only subdividing, you're not selling these parcels, is that correct?
Yes.
Still belongs to the same owner? Thank you.
Council, any other questions for the applicant? Anything else you'd like to add, Tom?
No, it's
Pretty
pretty
straightforward?
basic. Yeah, it's pretty straightforward subdivision, yeah.
Very good. So this will be considered next Tuesday. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Council, resolutions to be considered. Resolution appointing one of the following residents to the, well, these are going to be all,
Well, next week,
these are all going to be,
except
these
for
are,
number 14.
yes, thank you. Is it, oh, it's, pardon me, folks.
Requesting.
Yeah, they're all boards and
11 and
commissions.
12. Yeah, these items, this is all for boards and commissions, appointing or nominations for these positions. However, council, I'll point to the numbers 11 and 12 for the municipal authority and for the finance authority. Those we will not vote on next Tuesday. We have to wait till January because they are
Correct.
authorities.
Correct,
So we'll consider 8, 9, and 10 for next week.
yes.
Questions, council?
And 13. Number 14 is not related to.
Correct. No, 13 will be part, we will vote on 13. We're just a little out of order here. So 8, 9, 10, and 13 can be acted upon next Tuesday. 11 and 12, since they are authorities, we are not going to be acting on those. Hope somebody's taking notes.
I've got it.
Thank you. Okay. 14, so we have a resolution authorizing the proper officials to approve and execute a First Amendment to a consent order and agreement, COA, between the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection and participating municipalities. The COA covers the parts of Monroeville serviced by the Franklin Township Municipal Sanitary Authority, the FTMSA.
This is just more or less a housekeeping item. Small part of the sewage in Monroeville flows by gravity down into FTMSA's infrastructure. FTMSA, like many other sewage processors, is under a consent order with the federal government to make certain improvements to their system. They asked for an amendment for more time to get the job done, so everybody who has sewage flowing into their infrastructure has to adopt a resolution agreeing to the amendment. All it's about is giving them more time. The government's willing to give them more time to make the repairs that are necessary.
Okay.
So it's just really a housekeeping item.
Makes sense. Questions, council? Hearing none, we'll move over to the ordinances that we'll consider for this month. And all these items, 15
Through 19.
through 19, all pertain to the 2025 budget. And instead of going through them individually right now, Mr. Graziani, could you just give a
Yeah, let's
general
walk through those.
Walk them.
So, Josie and I prepared a few handouts for you to review tonight. We began in September or October, working on the budget. We had budget hearings in October, over 2 evenings in addition to the council meeting. And a lot of this stems from really some big strategic decisions we've been trying to make this year, what to do next year, including some additional staff persons, a deputy police chief, an assistant manager, a new Parks and Rec director, communications department, which would be formerly the TV department, becoming communications, and a couple other staff adjustments, as well as a pretty aggressive paving program next year, and beginning, to put the bones on a capital improvement project. We talked about in September, and in October as well, about increasing taxes by 2 mills. And we also talked about doing a $50 million bond to build a new public works campus and improve buildings. The latter probably won't start next year, though we will kind of finalize thinking about the public works campus, whether it can be built on its current location, rebuilt, or relocated. Obviously, that will have a lot to do with its final cost. Next year, we should, because of our reserves, be able to fund whatever we end up doing to get started. So we won't need to go and take out a bond till this time next year. We will be out of debt in 2026, so we'll retire the bonds that we have to build this building and other capital projects of the past, so the timing, could line up pretty well. Plus, bond rates, we hope, will be better next year. Backing up a bit, we'll decide next year early about the direction and scope of the Public Works building, and to the degree we address needed improvements at the senior center, library, this building, and the parks in general. These would be, you could think of them as capital projects that are facilities related, like you and your house might take out a mortgage to do or refinance a mortgage to rehab a home. We'll be looking at our buildings. The other components of capital, those that are durable goods but don't have a life of a mortgage, for example, vehicles, we'll just do as we have done with our capital budgeting. Okay, so that's kind of one element to consider that we talked about. So in general, we're not doing the bond that we kind of started the discussion in September. I think council authorized moving forward with the due diligence, but I likely won't happen till a similar time frame this time next year. Whether it will be 50 million or 20 million depends on how much public works and other building improvements we end up determining we need. This would be, the effort would be to get us to the 2040s, the next 20 years of building needs. The Public Works building was built in the first main building was built in 1975. The library and the senior center have been added on to many years, but they were in the 70s as well and 80s. This building was built in 2000. It's getting near 25 years old. So we need to look at that physical plan of the municipality, and we're looking at, if we're addressing those concerns, to do that through bond financing. Like I said, we're almost completely out of debt. We have one more year, and then a partial year in 26 to complete, any debt. Related to the tax increase, so what we do, just in general, we advertise a maximum. If council decides to go less than that, we won't have to re-advertise, right? Because if you think of it from a public standpoint, we've already publicly said this is the worst-case scenario budget. We don't need to re-advertise to lessen the worst-case scenario, to lessen expenditures or to lower tax. You don't need to re-advertise. So what I did was kind of get out in front of it and propose a 2 mil tax increase. So I've got a couple of handouts related to that, where I'm going to review with council 3 items related to the tax. One is the specific burden per household. 2 is the relative taxes within the 130 municipalities, including the layered county tax and school district taxes. So where do we fit within the 130 as far as local real estate taxes go? And then third item is the impact of inflation on the assessments in the municipality and its relationship to the tax revenue that we generate over about a 10-year period. But first, we have a couple of handouts that Josie will be reviewing with the council related to our current cash position in the fund. Before Josie gets started, I'm going to review 15, 16, 17, 18, and 19. 15 is the ordinance that would adjust the taxes from the current 6 to, or current 4 to 6. If you want to know what your tax bill is, simply multiply the rate, in this case it would be 6, times whatever the property value that you have, and then divide by 1,000, and that will give you your tax bill. Obviously, the county and municipal taxes are paid in the spring, school districts are paid in the fall. That ordinance has been advertised for 6. If council chooses to do 5.5, which would be a 1.5 mil increase, or 5, which would be a 1 mil increase, or maintain at 4, as I noted earlier, we don't need to re-advertise. The second one is setting the general fund at a certain amount. The budget balances. It balances at a spending plan of $41,373,021. If council takes the tax millage from 6 to 5, or 6 to 5.5, or 6 to 4, we will use reserve fund balances to make it balance, okay? There may be adjustments on expenditures. That would be related to item number 18, where we have some discretion between now and next Tuesday related to the salary structure for the 57 non-union employees. But before we get to that, we'll be setting ordinance number 17, item number 17, which is an ordinance setting the other rates. None of those rates are changing. Those are the existing rates. We're just recodifying as it is done annually in this community. And then lastly is the fee schedule. The fee schedule does have some rate increases, whether that is for pavilion rental or for a different fee. You can imagine the fee schedule covers 50, 60 different items. By law, these are cost recovery. We're just not able to, mark it up for profit. So if it costs so much to rent a pavilion or to process a subdivision, that's what we're able to charge. And so those get looked at every year, and a new fee ordinance gets established. So those are a review of items 15 through 19, and I've given a high-level view of the budget. I will in detail talk about the tax side of it in a moment, but let's talk about kind of our relative position. Josie?
I'm going to start with the handout that you have with the general fund. And what you have in front of you is a balance sheet, which gives you your assets minus your liabilities, and that'll show your net assets or fund balance.
Which handout is that?
The one
like
that has balance sheet,
That page number.
all these,
It was kind of laid right on the top of your
Stapled
pile
together.
when you came into your.
Here, this one.
you find it?
Just says
There's one that says general fund and one that says
That's it, right there.
capital.
Got it.
Get it?
This one here.
Oh, do you see it?
That's capital. We want the one that's general fund, which is like this, is paid. No. We can
We'll try to walk you
get
through
them
it.
for you.
And I can make some copies for you tomorrow. Yeah. I have extra copies of my other things, but we weren't able to make extra copies of this.
Okay. We ready?
Yep.
All right, so your assets minus your liabilities. If you look down at, near the bottom where it says change in assets, you'll notice from last year, our change in assets was a positive 4.8 million. This year, as of today, it's a negative 4.4 million, which is a difference of $11 million. Now, keep in mind, about 6 million, 5.8 million is attributable to the convention center. So the way we arrived at that 6.4 million negative, you have copies within your packet there of the budget revenue summary, which lists the actual. The actual total revenue was 36,762,163.
There you go.
Then you also have your expenditure summary, which lists the expenditures by department. And we have a total of 43,205,536. So essentially, we brought in 36 million, we spent 43 million, which brings you to your negative 6 million. And what generated that is largely the spending on capital improvements, which is your smaller balance sheet. If you look at the expenditure page for your capital projects, we spent a total of $10 million. 5.6 was for the convention center, almost 2 million for road repairs. And we've had some building repairs and vehicle purchases to make up the rest of that 10 million. Now, the funding for that 10 million came from $12 million out of the general fund, transferred to the capital fund, because the capital fund essentially has no revenue. Now, in some places, some other communities, maybe their taxes they'll designate a portion of a tax to fund capital projects, because it's capital projects isn't thing you just can't live with. It's like repairing your home, you know, you may need a furnace, you may need a roof, which we've done some of that stuff here on different buildings. So essentially, all I was trying to do is give you an idea of how we're ending 2024, and we can expect the same for 2025. That's it. Things aren't going down in price, you know. We're,
So Josie, back on the first one that you had,
yeah,
then basically the total liabilities and net assets is 20 million or 20.5 million.
right. Our fund balance then for the general fund is 20 million. Last year, it was 28 million. So then, yeah, without an increase in revenue, I would expect that to continue. Because you're either going to support your expenditures through revenue or fund balance.
And just
It's a simple
to context
equation.
that, as
Correct.
recently as 2010, this municipality had approximately a $1 million fund balance.
Right.
Between 2010 and 2023, built that up to a $28 million fund balance.
Correct.
And, you know, this year, as you can see on the capital, you know, the significant expenses we've made in reducing that. But the rule of thumb is you never want to have a year where you have less than 10% of your total budget in the bank.
Correct.
So if our total budget is 40 million, you know, 10% would be 4 million, 20% would be 8 million, and so forth. So it just gives you an idea contextually, 20 million as a fund balance is less than half of what the, you know, what our general
Sure.
fund is. What we don't represent here, and again, what was highlighted in that balance sheet was the way we have done capital. We've sort of done it as a pay-as-you-go, or pay-as-it-breaks, or pay-as-you-need way. And we
Right.
want to address that. And we feel the way to address that is, you know, adjusting, you know, the tax millage rate itself and committing, you know, those to capital projects. So this is the point for council, if you have questions related to those two items that Josie has reviewed, if you need any more help understanding what she's presented.
So to be clear, the 43,205 in expenditures that you're saying,
Yes.
you're saying 10 of that was capital costs,
12.
12. 12 of the 43.
Correct.
So 31 would be operating budget,
Yes. Roughly,
12.
yeah.
essentially our de facto capital budget, which we're going to work on hopefully getting a separate capital budget throughout the year next year.
Right.
Okay, understood.
And that was balanced out of the fund balance. What we have in the bank,
Yes.
the,
What we have in the bank,
Yeah, Mike, we took money from,
$12 million come out of the fund balance
it's
to cover the,
essentially.
some of it came out of the
half
operating
it,
budget?
Half of it. Half of it, yes. That's what that, on the balance sheet, at the bottom is the negative 6.4. That's roughly half of the 12.
And that's been our practice for some time, Josie. I don't know that we've ever explained that. At the end of the year, we've always taken the remainder of the portion out of the fund balance to balance the rest of the operating budget.
Yes, if need be, yes.
If needed, it's
Right.
need to do that.
Or we add to it, or money gets added to
Or
it.
more, yeah, in the past,
Right.
too.
And keep in mind, we as a council unanimously decided to spend $5.5 million to keep the convention center.
Yeah.
That's where $5.5 million went. And we kept it, and we kept businesses, and we kept jobs in this community.
I think the median number exclusive, to Bob's point, exclusive of the 5 million, our median number for the last 4 or 5 years has been 4 million, 5 million, 3 million in that transfer process. This very general numbers, though, but that's what we've done in the past.
I don't like to commit to numbers unless
Okay,
I see
that's
them
fine,
in
Jeff.
black
That's
and
fine, I'm
white.
not trying- But we, I'm just establishing this has been a practice in the past, and then, of course, this year, to Bob's point.
Yeah, nothing's
Yeah,
changed from
right.
our practice of the way we're
Right.
recording transactions and so forth. Nothing's changed there. It's just the numbers have changed.
Yeah. Yeah. And the bump this year is explainable for,
Correct.
to that point. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yep. Yep, nothing radical, nothing out of the ordinary.
Questions about that part of it for Josie, anybody?
So
Alex.
as we continue to deliberate, and that's the purpose of the work session, looking at item 15 is the property tax. So I have a couple of handouts for you, and if anyone's willing to help me distribute, I have some extra that the public's welcome to take. Oh,
You
thanks.
putting him back, you putting him back
Okay,
to
we're
work.
putting them back to work.
Put him back to work, for gosh sake.
Okay, so you can put them on the table there and just remove the clips. And then I will point them out, and whoever gets them first, it's theirs. So I'm going to call the council's attention to this item first. This is a way for you to understand the burden of a tax to a home. And I've presented it in a way that if you know your property value, or you guess what your property value is, you'll be able to see relatively what the county assesses your property to be valued at. And then you'll see what the tax would be at 4. And remember, taxes are calculated by multiplying the millage by the value as assessed by the county, dividing by 1,000. So looking at this chart, again, anybody on council or staff who has a relative idea of what their house is can do this. But I'll make it simple for all of us by saying, in Monroeville, the median value of a home, according to the U.S. Census, for the time period 2018 to 2022, and that's the way the census presents data, is $182,600. So you can see, looking at the chart, if you find the 182, it has a unique color highlight, $182,600. The county, there's this concept of assessments and reassessments. And we have base years. In this county, the base year's like 2013, based on the 2020 or 2012 assessment. That changes over time based on real data that, is from the home sales. The state determines what they call a common level ratio to make it all make sense. I live in Westmoreland County. The base year is 1972. So the common level ratio in Westmoreland County is like 10. 1 to 1 would be the real value is the real assessment. So you expect the market is reflecting what the values are. But the further you get from an assessed year, the higher the common level ratio is. They're not 1 to 1. In our case, it's almost a 1 to 2, depending on which judge you talk to. And we have a lawyer who has expertise in taxes, so I don't want to say too much more and make him grieve by my misunderstanding of the way it works. But this is the way I understand it, right? You have a base year of the real market value, but that's an anchor, that over time, the longer it gets from the anchor year or the base year, the prices will be different. It's just the reality, right? 1972 in Westmoreland County, 2012 in Allegheny County. So currently, that house that has a market value of about $182,000 would be assessed at a value of about $96,000 and would be paying $384 currently to Monroeville. We have 4 mills. The county, depending on what they raised tonight, I'm not sure what the number is they did today, but they were like at 4.7, and I think they might be raising it to 5 point something by the time it's all said and done. The county executive proposed the 2.2 mills. But for us, in this chart, I wanted to keep it simple. If we raise by 1, that will add an additional $96 a year or $8 a month for that householder. So if your house is worth $1 million and you're assessed at $526,000, your monthly is $43.86. So to put that into context, 2 meals back to the 182 is the price of a large pizza per month. Now, you all know, and I think we do a pretty good job with police, public works, fire, EMS, sanitary, garbage. Ask some of your neighbors what they pay for garbage, for example. We're talking, if they did 2 meals, the impact to the median home value at 2 meals would be $16 a month. So that's the way to read this chart. You just have to know the number of your house, though, or have the relative value of your house to be able to figure out the rest of the chart. The second handout is similar, but done a little bit differently. And that one is an 8.5 by 11 in a portrait format with multiple colors and a little pie chart at the back. The pie chart at the back is to show you relatively, if you can think of the pie with that $182,600 house, how much of a tax burden is the municipalities, how much of the real estate tax burden is the county at their current rate, not the rate they may have changed today, in the school district. So that person who has a house worth about $180,000 is paying about $576 to Monroeville, $454 to, the county, and $2,300. So if you want to know where we get the $576, that's the 6 mil rate. So I've done to the pie chart the maximum burden or impact. So looking back at this chart, 576 is at 6 mils. That's what's reflected here. I don't know what the county did, whether they did, if they've also got theirs closer to 6 mils or not. But you kind of get the idea. Your fall tax is more than twice your spring tax, even though your spring tax is the combined of the county and the school district. And that's why the pie chart is bigger on the school district side than ours. So these 2 charts were meant to relativize the particular tax burden of no change, current, 1 mil change, or 2 mil change. Any question from council on that part of the presentation relative to the tax?
Oh, good presentation.
Okay. So the next part of the presentation deals with the relative position of the municipality to the rest of the county. In Allegheny County, there are 130 municipalities, including the city of Pittsburgh, and there's some like 45 school districts or so. So I have 3 8.5 by 11 landscape stapled presentations or charts to look at. Let's look at the one with the title, Allegheny County Real Estate Taxes 2014 to 2024 Ranked by Municipal Change. Thanks to Holly Aronsenko and her work of data entry, we analyzed every municipality going back to 2001 and every school district going back to 2001, which was the big base year, if you will. That's when the most controversial reassessment occurred here in Allegheny County, driven by lawsuits to do. There was an old, ancient tax assessment that predated that the courts forced in 2001 to have the reassessment. That was followed by the 2012. But we looked at the data all the way to 2001, but we felt 2014 was a good way to look at it. Why 2014? Because in 2013, that year, council voted to increase taxes to 4 mills. That was the last time we adjusted the real estate tax assessment in Monroeville. So looking back at that chart, what this is doing is ranking by absolute change the municipal adjustments since 2014. So, for example, if you look down number 17, the rank, Plum Borough. Plum Borough increased taxes 2.85 mils since 2014, and their current tax rate is 6.630. Now, if you continue further on and you add on the county, 4.73, and you add on the school district for Plum Borough, the Plum School District, 23.390, the total tax burden in our neighbor of Plum is 33.920. So that just gives you an idea how to read the chart. So if you flip over, and this is just, again, contextualizing it, since 2014, 95 municipalities have increased taxes in Westmoreland County. Now, we know, I'm sorry, Allegheny County. We know the school districts all did every year. That's just what they do. Why? Because the school districts in 2008 were required to, if they ever increased taxes over a benchmark set by the Commonwealth, they would have to face the voters. And no school district wants to face the voters with a question that begins with, do you want us to raise your taxes? Whatever the end of the question is, the answer will always be no. So every school district has behaved accordingly. Whatever the state says, for example, the state may say, school districts, you're allowed to raise your taxes by 2%. If you go over that, you have to face the voters. Every school district, whether they needed it or not, has done that. And that would be similar for Gateway. I'm not picking on the school districts, I'm just trying to help you understand in Pennsylvania why the discussion of assessments is one about getting water out of a rock. And the reason it's so hard is school districts are burdensome on top of the real estate. Pennsylvania has been promised since Governor Schaap, Governor Thornburg, Governor Rendell, Governor, you name the governor, to fix property taxes. And we've increased gambling and every sort of thing you can imagine to fix it. But it's still a heavy burden. And the school districts still rely heavily on the property tax, as you can see by that pie chart that I showed earlier. The burden of your taxes is predominantly a school district issue. However, look at the municipalities. We actually have some in Allegheny County. These are the all-stars, who actually, since 2014, adjusted their taxes lower. And beginning with Mount Lebanon at the 119 position, all the way through to McDonald. Now, McDonald is a little bit unusual because, like Trafford, it spans counties. Trafford spanning Westmoreland, McDonald spanning Washington. So its assessments are a little wonky, and that's part of the reason why you look at the rate, 37 mills. I can't explain it, but that's why. It's an outlier, to say the least. The second chart is meant to show you the rank of the total taxes by the local government alone, not the school district, within Allegheny County. In this one, you'll note that Monroeville is in the 76th position. So out of 130, 75 communities have a higher tax rate. And if you're curious, what would 2 mills look like? 2 mills would put us at, if no one changed their taxes this year, would put Monroeville at the 52nd position. So we would be ranked 52 if no one changes their taxes this year. If we changed ours by 2 mills. Helps you to read the chart. Just trying to keep it as much as possible simple. The last chart in this group is one that shows you the total tax burden, and it layers on the county and the school district. So we're 84. I mentioned before we were like 70 some, but we're 84 in this grouping. And again, if you wanted to add 2 mills, our total tax burden in 2024 is 30.2 mills. Adding 2 mills would put you at 6.2. And you can see that would be right around where Shaler Township is. That would put us in the 70 position. This second of the 3 legs of the stool related to the tax discussion was meant to show you relative position of Monroeville within the whole county. The last one, and I do apologize to the public because I kind of just thought about putting this together as I was getting into this evening, and that is relative to what inflation has done to our taxes. So I don't have a ton of copies of these. I have a few extra, and I'll give you those after I give these out to council. So the first thing is from your audit that we produce every year. So this is something that was handed to you in September, and I referred back to it back in September and October. And what it says is, in 2014, and if we have extra copies, Bob, can you make sure they're available for the public? Okay, so if somebody could help us, Steve, thank you. Yeah, if you want, you could put one right on the center, Steve, and you could use it as a little piece.
See it?
It'll be hard to see. I'll try to do the numbers well. So first of all, you have to understand the way we represent valuations within the table. They're based in thousands. So for example, a number that is $2,380,864, you have to add 3 more zeros to that. Because what we're talking about is the value of all properties in the municipality of Monroeville. So in the year 2014, the total taxable assessed value, so these are not including hospitals that are tax exempt, churches that are tax exempt, Allegheny Land Trust properties that are tax exempt, Gateway School Districts buildings that are tax exempt, county buildings like PennDOT buildings are tax exempt, interstate highways and interchanges that are tax exempt. So it doesn't include any of that. This is the taxable property. In 2014, if you go over the columns, the total is $2,380,864. But again, you got to add 3 more zeros to that. That's the total. But what's remarkable is, despite the fact that we've built numbers of developments and redevelopments, look down at the 2023 value. It actually decreased. Look at the number. 2,380 down to 2,365. So despite the new development in Monroeville, our total assessed value is decreased slightly. Now, I won't get far into the inflation, but I'll contextualize why that is so. Reassessment, back to the 2012 base assessment. When property owners are able to demonstrate to the county that their property is not reflected as a real market value, they can be reassessed at a lower rate. I'll use round numbers. The mall, for example, may have been valued at $78 million, but now is valued at $18 million. They get that reassessment by appealing to the reassessors down at the county and making a case based on market factors and comparables, and they win. When they win, the school district and the municipalities automatically sometimes owes them money. Depending on how that works, we pay refunds on those. So when they reassess, depending on how they did it and how it worked, it can be very significant to us and the school district. Often we will fight those assessments. Now, you're familiar with some communities and school districts in Allegheny County have done the welcome to the neighborhood, because it's tit for tat. What's good for the goose is good for the gander. Local governments can also challenge the assessment of properties and take often their new homeowners to court and say, oh, you just bought that house at $350 and the county's assessing you at $180. We want your taxes to go up. And ask your friends in Wilkinsburg and Churchill and Wilkins Township what that's like, because the Woodland Hills School District's pretty aggressive. And they watch the home sales, and they're in there too. So it kind of cuts both ways. But in this community, our solicitor probably could correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think we're very aggressive on that end. But we do see the appeals come from the property owners.
No, the school district leads the way on that because they have a much bigger dog in the
Yeah.
fight, and we actually get the benefit of what they do. Because
So
they-
there'll be times where we have entered in and said, hey, that, I'll make it up, shopping plaza sold for so much. We feel it should be, it's undervalued in the
Right,
assessment.
right. And we have a separate voice, and we can raise that voice if we think the school district is being backward on it, but they're pretty aggressive in terms of what they go after,
So the point of this table is to say, in general, we're losing. In general, we're losing. Now, again, not a ton, but since the rate is the same and the value of total properties has changed, that results in a slightly less, amount of money collection. Now, let's talk about inflation. If you Google inflation calculator, whether it's the Federal Reserve out of Minneapolis or the Bureau of Labor Statistics or the U.S. Census Bureau, you can have an inflation calculator going back to when we went off the gold reserve and the Federal Reserve came into being in 1914. So you can type in the dollar of 1914 and what is it valued today. It's pretty crazy. But you can pick your base year. In this case, I picked 2014 because that's the base year. And I put in January 1 of 2023. So just keep that in mind. The chart goes to January 1, 2023. When I did that, it basically said that the $2,380,864 would have the buying power of $3,212,918. That's a 27% change in buying power. So if I had that number, and if it would have changed with inflation, if you look back at the table where it says 2023, where it says 2.365, that should be 3.212. If that happened, we wouldn't have a discussion about the rate. Look, the Whopper you bought in 2014 is not the same price of the Whopper you bought in 2024. Whatever it is you bought in 2014, it's not the same price. But for us, the price is the same and the value that we're taxing on is the same, which is not over the long run sustainable. However, if you do it to 2024, which right now, we're going to be building off the 2025 year, January 2025, but the calculators only go through October, the number is larger, and again, it's the same story. You're looking at a difference of basically $3.3 million of additional tax revenue we're out by that change into 2025. So if the number in 2024 changed, if the value of properties changed just like inflation did, not any higher or lower, but right at inflation, we would be collecting $3.3 million more next year. But it didn't. So we're kind of like even a little bit backwards because our rate didn't change, nor did the value change. So that's a lot to say why I'm proposing the tax increase. Now, obviously, the council has seen this evening that we have a pretty healthy fund balance. Council can choose to do anything up to 2. If they choose to go over 2, we got to re-advertise. So we're not going to do that, right? We all agree we're not going above 2. But what we do between now and next Tuesday is up to you to figure out. Does council have questions about the presentation related to the tax millage and how the rate is factored?
So Alex, first of all, great work, you guys. It's terrific. I think it was pretty clear. You've been digging into this much further than we have in a long time. So, knuckle dragon fireman, I have to ask twice, okay, to do that, but sometimes. So essentially, if we continue not doing anything, we're losing in terms of our ability in the budgets for our value of our operating part of our budget.
In general, yes, slightly.
We're going backwards.
Real estate taxes can be seen as inelastic. You don't want an inelastic waistband on Thanksgiving. You want an elastic. Elasticity is good. It grows. But inelastic is good, and that's what real estate is. And in a community like ours that, let's say, is mature, it's inelastic so much so it's almost like concrete. Look at that number. Look at 2014 and look at 2023. You can't get a more inelastic figure than over a period of that much, where how many units have we built from 2014 to 2023? You know, a lot of housing units came on. How many plazas were upgraded and dressed up? How many new buildings were constructed? A lot. But the mature ones were able to win appeals to get their values lower. So to answer your question again, we are losing ground if we continue, and what we're fearful of, depending on how the courts decide to handle reassessment, is that we'll continue to lose, because it is very hard for businesses to continue if they're out of whack on taxes, and they're winning appeals. And that's why the school district, I guess, in Pittsburgh is the one leading the court challenge to get the county to reassess. I'm not sure who all the litigants are. Yes. Yeah, the school districts are, they're losing more than we are, so they're fighting harder than we are.
So it would not be responsible for us to do nothing.
Oh, absolutely not.
Your alternative is to change other rates, whether that's the business privilege or the business taxes. The solicitor might be able to correct me on what the caps are. You could change the stormwater fee, but that has to go only to stormwater. The real estate tax is the general fund source. I mean, you have your earned income as well, but it's the real estate tax that, you know, is the bedrock of your general fund.
Now, that roughly 9 million that we've kind of played with for the last few years is getting valued less and less and less.
Correct. And the buying, again, compromised even greater by the buying power.
Thank heavens we're thinking ahead.
I don't believe we can avoid a tax increase if we want to continue the services that we provide. I think it's impossible. We can't continue to pull from our reserves. I'm not sure what that number should be. And I'm not in favor of it being a 2. So that's just my thoughts.
I mean, and I know as I asked earlier, so 12 of it was spent last year on capital, 5.6 of that 12 was for the convention center. So that is not something that is going to be done every year.
Right.
That's a once in
Right,
a,
right.
I don't want to say lifetime, but that's an outlier, that 5.6 million that we'd be spending for that, or any council be spending on something like that. So I think that should be taken into consideration as well, that, and if we do go through a true capital improvement budget, some of that money is going to come out of operational as well.
Yeah, one of the reasons why I want to have both the cushion and the tax increase is because I want to, hopefully in the first quarter, we'll have a clear direction to the extent of the physical plant improvements, beginning with the Public Works Complex. We talked about the 50 million, but for example, if we proceed with a $40 million Public Works Complex and we draw down our reserves to a comfortable level by starting the work, site preparation, whatever it is we need to do, and take out the bond at the end of next year so that the bond comes to us in 2026. That's kind of how I see it playing out. You know, I think that's a prudent way to go. What that may mean is instead of financing 50, which the cost of financing 50 might be 40, right? Just like at your house, if you had a mortgage, you have to buy money, and that's called interest. That's the cost of getting the money. The interest may be like 40. We may be financing, 30 million because we drew down our reserves and we got done more than what we could. So again, a lot of that is to be seen. And I think council, whatever you decide on Tuesday, you're not going to be able to escape. Your physical plant is aged, hampering efficiencies of operations and the delivery of services. They need to be modernized, possibly totally rebuilt, and that's not going to come at a low cost. But look, you're sitting in a building that someone had to, in the mid-'90s, decide to build. We're operating out of the buildings that people in the 60s and 70s decided to build. It's your turn, with your debt almost being gone, to make the decision for the next 20 on how to proceed and upgrade your physical plant. That gets down to drawing the value down, because you're saying, you might say to yourself, well, we have that, can't we just live off the reserves for a few years? Sure, but you won't do any capital projects like you might want to, and you'll eventually be doing a tax increase. So if you're first year in your term like Mr. Crut, you might be at the last year thinking of the same issue because you didn't address it now. If you address it now, you won't be thinking of it in that year. Look at, if it's been done in 10 years, the 2 mil or 1 mil, it may not need to be done for another 5 or 10 years. But it wouldn't be prudent to assume that you can go 20 years and not change the rate. You're going to have to someday. Likely, if you get 2 terms, probably once in your 8 year of service, you'll be part of a tax increase vote.
And Mr. Stevenson kind of mentioned it, and I know you've talked about it as well, so as far as like the services, and we get these questions often about taxes, and yes, school tax is just for the schools and everything, but as far as what your municipal tax goes towards is our general government here, our whole park system, our police, our in-house dispatch center, our fire and EMS, they help out as well, but fire and EMS, our roads that get paved, our roads that get plowed and salted, our garbage that gets picked up every week, and anything you throw away, and recycling gets picked up every 2 weeks, our senior center, our library, those are all things that your millage rate for the municipality goes towards. Did I miss anything?
Well,
All of that?
Parks and Rec.
Yeah.
I mentioned our parks,
Yeah,
but all of our parks.
Senior center, to be clear, back to the forms where you had the 8.5 by 11 stapled sheets comparing us to other local governments. We are truly a full-service municipality. If there's 130 municipalities, there may be, in Allegheny County, 20 that are real full service, that are in everything, from refuse and recycling to senior centers to parks and recreation to one of the best police forces in the Commonwealth and a volunteer fire department EMS system that's up there with the best of them. We're not in crisis. Why? Because we've been good stewards of our resources. We've made great decisions. We have a very strong business district here. And that business district actually lowers your tax burden in general, because unlike other communities, where maybe only 5 others in Allegheny County have the business taxes that we have, and that's a way to spread the burden on the real estate, quite frankly. You see what the real estate rates are. You have all of the real estate rates for every community in Allegheny County to look at. You can see where we fit. So I would argue that we are a full-service community. Out of the 130, there may be 30 that are equal to us in service delivery. And I would put our services up there with the rest of them. So they might have a higher millage and not even provide the services you get. They still might have a garbage bill. Ask your friends in, whether it's Churchill or Penn Hills or Wilkinsburg, I mean,
can help
they're
you with that.
paying for garbage
I can-
on top of their real estate, on top of their earned income. That's not included for them. That's an excluded fee that's, off for them that they pay every month.
I can help you with that, Alex, not to pile on everybody else, but in our, liaison work with the League of Municipalities, that's exactly true. Frequently, I get asked that very question. How do you do X, Y, and Z? And geez, we wish we had a landfill in our community, or, what, you can't believe what we pay contracted trash. That's usually the biggest conversation I have with a lot of people, to do that, is about trash. And I'm like, oh, no, that's our guys. We do that.
The two mills is $16 a month at the median house. The quarterly bill for waste management or Republic Services in your neighboring communities is about $75 a quarter. So it's about $25 a month. And that's about a ballpark. Some of them are higher, some are a little less.
Yeah, penny.
And they may be limiting what you throw
Absolutely.
to one container of a certain size. It's not unlimited throw, and it's not as frequent on all of the issues, or like the recycling and what
And
we
the
do here.
recycling stuff as well. That's correct.
I'm going to just throw a number out there, and I don't know if it's correct or not, but around 25% of our community are senior citizens. I think that's a good number.
Probably.
I see some in the audience. I'm a senior citizen. I'm on a fixed income. 5 years ago, we were told that we have to pay an MS4 fee, which is $120 a year. And we're paying that. Now we're going to add some more to us. And that hurts people that are on fixed incomes. And that's why I'm not in favor of the 2%,
Or 2 mills, yeah.
Mills.
or 2 mills, I'm sorry. So I know we have to raise it. I don't think we have a choice, but I hope we can minimize that raise for senior citizens.
So what Josie did on her handout, on the second part of that handout, she wrote in the figure what 1 mil is. So if you do 1 mil, okay,
Which hand up, which, on the, I saw some.
it's the
hand-
one, yeah, it's this one that looks like this. It has 1 on the top.
It's
Okay.
the one we started with, that balance.
One you started
the
with.
balance sheet one.
If you look at what she wrote on the second page, which is landscape, in hand, she wrote 1 mil, or 2 mils is 4.4. So you divide that in half, 1 mil is 2.2. The budget, if it gets passed, would then rely on a greater drawing down of the fund balance to make the budget balance at 41,373,021. So that just gives you an idea. If you want an easy way to calibrate, 1 mil in general generates $2.2 million, give or take. Not all people pay at face, some people pay at discount, and not all people pay. So that's why it's hard to exactly know what you're going to get at a certain rate. And we estimated at 2.2. So if you don't do the 4.4 additional real estate tax revenue, you would be relying on some difference being made up of the fund balance. To understand the way that works, flip the page, or flip 2 pages, I guess. No, 2 pages. The last page, if you go to line 8400, interest, transfers, and fund balance, that's a really interesting number to look at. If you follow it from 21, 22, 23, 24, and so forth, you can see what it does. Now, the 2025 is at 5.8. If you go down to 1 mil, add 2.2 to 5.8. 7 mil is what that would be, 7 million. So that just gives you an idea, how does this work? If we pull 1 back, where's the gap fill? Now, obviously, you may say, well, Alex, you're just assuming the same expenditure plan, and I am. You want to open up expenditures, we can talk about those. I think the expenditures are sound and prudent, but I'm in year 1. I might think a little bit differently next year and feel we could save some and make some, other things happen. But at this point, what we're asking council to consider is focusing on that tax mill change, making up the difference from your savings or your fund balance.
A 10% change.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Mr. Williams?
Yeah, the statement I would like to make is that if you lived in Turtle Creek today, you would pay $80 a quarter for refuse collection. That's 3 cans and a piece of furniture. Monroeville has the best refuse collection in, I'd say, the tri-state area. So that $80 a quarter is $320 a year, and if we decided to do away with our garbage people, then it would cost you at least $320 a year. We don't choose to do that. We like our services, and we not beat by anybody. Senior citizens, we talk about, we're getting a 2.5% increase in our social security check. So it's all dollars and cents, and you can call it a fee, a tax, or a service. It's still costing you money, but we can't keep kicking the can down the road. We have to do something, or we'll be like some of the other communities that just don't have any services. Thank you.
Council, any questions so far? Any comments? You know, there's no question we have incredible services here, and I know I support them. I know everyone up here supports those services, and we're talking about a lot of different numbers, but we still are talking about increasing taxes, and we talk about the different median, levels of homes. So it still is more for different households, like Mr. Stevenson mentioned. Now, personally, and I agree with Mr. Stevenson, I'm not quite comfortable with a 2 mil increase. I don't have a vote next Tuesday, but I do understand that to maintain our level of services and to not get to a point where we have catastrophic issues with the municipality, something has to be done based on inflation alone. The things that we pay for in our own households are more expensive now, just how the municipality is. Certainly, throughout the year, we can certainly track those expenditures. And also, too, whenever you budget money, that doesn't necessarily mean that it all gets spent. We do have some years where we actually bring in more money than we do spend. 2023, that was the case. 2021, that was the case. And this is something that, as Alex mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, we advertise for 2. That's what the draft is for 2. When we vote next week, we can do 2 or anywhere between 2 and 0. That's up to council. Certainly, you could even make modifications at this meeting as far as the direction you want to go, or we could certainly, there's been a lot of handouts, a lot of information given. Everybody certainly has the budget. The budget is a public document as well. It's on the website that you can review, and we can make our final decision prior to voting next Tuesday. But I just want to have the floor open for any other comments by council or any other thoughts on the matter.
Mr. Mayor, could we consider cutting the stormwater runoff fee in half? And consider that factor in choosing what rate to go to for a tax increase?
I mean, council has the pleasure of doing any of that every year. That's one of our fees that you can modify. Now, I would caution council in that does affect the nonprofit property owners in our community, that we do generate revenue from that. That's the one way, by that fee being enacted, that's one way that the UPMCs, the Forbes, that we actually get
School district.
financial gain, school district,
Right.
that we get money from them. I mean, certainly that's up to the pleasure of council to modify that, but I think,
Right, they haven't paid,
I
but
mean, could you do that just residential?
just resident.
We would need to enact an ordinance, and obviously, for this budget, it would be like a January ordinance.
I mean, with the reserve they have,
It's not something I would contemplate, quite frankly, Bill, until this evening. We obviously, I'm not sure when we mentioned the hospitals and those, like if Josie or Paul know of the MS4 fee are we getting those? Because I think the point the mayor has made in the previous council in enacting it was the burden on the taxpayer who's not a hospital, a church, or a school, or a land trust, or whatever it is all there is. So by getting that fee and using the utility of the stormwater, it was spreading it out, because everybody benefits from water drainage. But do the hospitals, not sure who's all paying.
Yes, yeah, they are.
Yeah.
The school district, no, they're suing us. And that's going to be resolved here probably in the next, I would say, 3 to 6 months. We're going to get a decision out of the Supreme Court. And that goes for everybody in Pennsylvania that's charging the fee.
Okay.
So there might even be some, based upon what the Supreme Court does, there might be some other ways or other things that all municipalities have to look at in terms of imposition of the fee.
Based
So-
on that case.
Yeah, so, I mean, it might be a bit inopportune time to consider a rollback on that, but that's up to council.
And what Mike was asking was a little bit of nuance was, is there a scheme where the EDUs are different from one to the,
They are already different, aren't they? For a residential house, it's
Well-
it's a
That's a
straight-
flat fee
It's a flat
for
fee.
the residents.
Correct.
But for the businesses, isn't it?
it's a multiplier of that fee.
Yes. Yeah.
You're considered 10 or 20 or.
Based on square footage, yeah, too.
So it's already different.
Correct, but we're talking about the base rate adjusting, which and I'm not sure how that would work
And it's
out.
different for commercial,
Wasn't there some,
commercial and nonprofits as
wasn't there
well.
some restriction in the original permit that you have to make it, oh geez, it's 4 years.
You have to
now.
have uniformity.
You have to, yeah, thank you. Yeah,
Like,
there is
it's all
some-
based on,
Thank
it's
you.
all based on what one unit is.
Mm-hmm.
And the average size household is how you do the residentials. And then the commercials are all done based upon how much actual impervious surface they have. What is it, 2,300 on a residential home?
2370.
2,370, okay. And then basically, like the mall is much, much bigger. And so a small office building would pay a little more than a residential, a big office building would pay a lot more. But it's all based upon the EDUs, so when you change that, or is it ERU?
ERU.
Yeah,
ERU.
I
My question was, Bob, could you change it for the residents, residential properties, and leave the commercial?
I thought it had to be,
You have to have some uniformity in there, and right now the uniformity comes by the ERUs. So if you change that, and it isn't a rational change, if you just say, look, the average household in Monroeville is producing so many ERUs, and we're just gonna cut their fee in half. Well, then everybody else that uses ERUs has an argument, that's where you violate uniformity. So I'm not saying there's nothing you can do, but you have to be careful about it so you maintain that uniformity.
But that fee that's collected can only go for stormwater.
Yeah, so
Correct,
here's the
correct.
concerns, correct. One is our physical plan at the Public Works, the improvements will be funded partly because MS4 is being part of that improvement and the housing of that. And that was contemplated in the original rate set. The second one is, and I think we'll see this more and more in road projects, I think Monroeville is positioning itself well with the fund balance in the MS4 when it comes to highway projects. For 50 years, 30 years, 20 years, you pick the decades, you pick the time frame. We have wanted PennDOT to do, and the county to do, intersection improvements in this community. And we wring our hands and we harangue about why is nothing ever done, and the accidents continue at Old William Penn Center or whatever intersection we're frustrated with. Well, part of that is we haven't been able to put skin in the game. We've not committed the dollars to be a part of the solution. Now, that may be 5% or 10%. I believe with the MS4, if we're creative, we can add to road projects because we're picking up the stormwater side of it. Because every stormwater, back to the Miracle Mile Highway, Miracle Mile development, that was built without stormwater improvements. Almost every highway you see was built without stormwater improvements. And for the first time, the turnpike and the widening are building these gigantic ponds alongside because they're accounting for runoff. Rightly so, because property for years was damaged by their negligence of just running off to the neighbor, collecting it on the highway and pushing onto the neighbor. That can't happen, but it still exists in our community. And we're our infrastructure poor, to be honest with you, in a lot of our parts. And to address my opinion, a long-term strategy would be to address significant intersection deficiencies in areas. We can use the money that we have accumulated in MS4, make real stormwater improvements, thereby having skin in the game to say to PennDOT and the feds, we're in. We're not just saying to you, come fix our problems. We're saying, fix our problems and we're in. And I think that's a strategy that I want to develop. And what Mike has said, and I think he's right, is we have to have a capital improvements program. We really haven't. We're close. We have a lot of idea of projects we want to do, but we haven't been able to like formalize that the way we'd like to. And I'd like in 2025, in the summer, quite frankly, by August, to have that in front of you so that it predates the general fund discussion. So you have a really good sense. So backing it up, in January, first quarter, we got to get our plans in order for what we're doing with our physical plant, our facilities. And then later, as that dust settles, figure out the rest of the capital improvements program. And I would hesitate until that in the court case to really start messing with the MS4.
Do you need a break?
And let's be more creative on the MS4, because it is a fairer tax than the real estate is. I didn't use the right word. It's a fairer fee.
It is a fee.
Well, that argument's going to be settled here in the near
Yeah,
future by the
but it spreads,
Supreme Court.
it spreads out cost over those who right now don't pay real estate. Those hospitals are worth hundreds of millions of dollars and pay zero real estate taxes, but demand high-end police, high-end everything to service them. The calls we have in those places alone are tremendous.
And even
So,
prior to-
And that's good, but it's nice that they pay the MS4 fee.
And even prior to the MS4 fee being enacted, the projects that were done were typically, they were done out of the general fund, general budget. That was operational. The stormwater was part of the operational budget. So that didn't change or go anywhere. It's a creative idea, and I think we should probably look at it
Yes,
long-term.
it should be thought about, but I'm hesitant to say, yeah, let's go and get a draft.
Well,
ordinance.
I wouldn't advocate to leave the millage rate at a 2 mil increase and change the MS4. I think we'd be better off, if you want to modify anything, change the millage rate and not the MS4. But we should probably reevaluate that.
Not yet. MS4, not yet, until we're done with the court cases as well, too. Because that was a consideration, a period of time, but no, not to that. But again, the millage rate, to Bob's point, to your point, is what we have in front of us to be able to look at and to control, to do that. We're looking at, took my shoes and socks off, Alex, I had to count. So, $3,959,150 increase this year into the budget, too. But we haven't considered what's the next piece of inflation, the next part that's ongoing. We're losing ground, so it's really not as big of an increase in what we're actually doing.
Well, and the increase we're asking for, and this will be voted on next Tuesday. So we'll know
Right.
what that number's going to be then.
I have a better handle on that inflation. Okay.
Okay, so that is items 15 through 19. Council, at this point, any other comments or questions about the budget, about what was discussed this evening, about what Josie or Alex went over?
Good work, folks. Thank you.
This will all be considered at next Tuesday's meeting, 1 week from today at 7 PM. There will also be a comment period prior to any vote next week. There is the comment period for all of these items at the start of next week's meeting, if anyone from the public wants to voice their concerns. And certainly, you can certainly reach out to your council person between now and then as well, via phone or email, if you have any comments or concerns about the 2025 budget. Council, item number 20.
Yeah, so this also is related to the budget, because it does impact costs, and that is an ordinance to authorize the proper officials to enter into a collective bargaining agreement with the Public Works and Refuse Bargaining Unit beginning January 1, 2025 through December 31st, 2028.
Questions or comments? Very good. We're going to move over to reports of our municipal staff. Mr. Ratcher, anything this evening?
I'll yield my time to others that want us to talk.
Thank you. Alex? back to
Just
you.
basically, I'm available for council if we want to talk more about any particular issue that you weren't clear on this evening, and for the public. If you want copies of the handouts that Josie had, My business card, I think, might be up there. I have some. Just let me know, and I'll get those, to you as you need them.
Very good. Mr. Hugus, anything this evening?
I'm good, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Rock, anything else this evening?
No, I'm good, thanks.
Great job, thank you.
Thank you.
For your information. And it does mention there's a public comment, but that's actually what we're going to have at next Tuesday's meeting. So I'm going to report over to our reports of our council members. I have not. Mr. Hizzy, thank you. Mr. Poach.
I'll be joining virtually next week from Florida.
You don't have to rub it in.
Yeah, well, it's work now. It's not now.
Very good.
Yeah.
Mr. Stevenson.
Be warm.
I want to thank our solicitor for donating his time to me. I appreciate that. I have quite a few things to go over. If you bear with me, I'd appreciate it. Monroeville
You want to
Recreation.
reconsider?
No. Monroeville Recreation and Parks is excited to kick off December with a bunch of festive fun. Both the municipal building and Monroeville Public Library are official North Pole outposts. Santa letter drop-off will be available through Monday, December 16th, 2024. Letters will be sent special delivery to the North Pole. Due to our close relationship with Santa, he often responds to letters mailed at our outpost by deadline. Other winter wonderful events will be held this Saturday, December 7th, from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. at Monroeville Volunteer Number 4 Fire Department. This event is designated for residents 12 years and under with a parent or guardian and will feature a hot cocoa station, cookie decorating, holiday craft, and a visit with Santa. Lastly, but most electric, it is our 37th annual Holiday Light Contest has begun. We ask our Monroeville residents to grab some hot cocoa and hop in their cars with family and friends to help us nominate the best light displays in Monroeville. Prize categories will include, through a Child's Eye Award, Traditionally Elegant Award, Clark Griswold Award. That's a good one.
That's a good one.
Most Festive Theme Award, and Most Original Masterpiece Award. Nominations can be made via OR code and link available on municipal sites by Friday, December 13th. Winners will be determined Monday, December 16th, 2024 by Recreation and Parks Advisory Board and announced on Facebook and other municipal sites as well as in the next brochure. The Recreation and Parks Department wishes everyone a very merry holiday season. Official North Pole outposts. Attention, all good little boys and girls. Santa has asked us to help him collect your letters for him. Beginning Monday, December 2nd, 2024, Santa drop-off boxes will be located at both Monroeville Recreation Department, Monroeville Public Library, and letters will be sent special delivery to the North Pole with Santa responding to each child's letter that is received before Monday, December 16th. Parents, please make sure that your child's names and return mailing address are legible. Santa needs to allocate his magic to spreading cheer other ways. Jared, if you could, put up the Winter Wonderland Number 4 Fire Department advertisement, if you have it. I don't know that you do. So Saturday, December 7th, 2024, I already went over this, 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. At Number 4 Fire Station for children 12 and under with an adult. The last thing that I already went over is the 37th Annual Holiday Light Contest. Everybody can nominate whoever they feel has the best of the things that I covered, the Griswold and traditional and all of that, so. Thank you. It did appear. So we had half of what I was babbling about. So, thank you very much.
It's more open this year, right? Get more people then.
Yes.
Cool.
yes. So, Thank you, and that's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Stevenson, and all that information is on our municipal website and also through the Park and Recreation Facebook page. And, yeah, the categories, it was always challenging whenever judging the lights, because you do have two houses, and one is that Clark Griswold over-the-top, actually, they refer to it as dopamine overload or whimsical displays. And then you have one that's really classically done, and over the years, the department really decided, like, hey, we should probably have different categories. That's a great idea that they put them in different categories. So please, if you see a neighbor or someone, when you're driving home, if, try to pick out that house number and nominate them. So the rec department has a lot of entries for these categories. Mr. Crut, please.
Nothing, thank you.
Mr. Adams.
Nothing tonight, Mayor.
Mr. Williams.
I do have something. First of all, take heed. We have a lawyer that yields his time and don't want to talk. That's unusual. But,
Jeez, Bob.
The other thing is, the Stone Church had a tree lighting. Our Historic Society did a great job. The Gateway Band, it was just violins, and it was really nice. They did a good job. So I want to thank Gateway for lending us their students. And I think that was 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. Is that right, Bruce?
We talked about it.
The instruments. But anyhow, they did a great job. You missed a nice night out. I want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and Happy Holiday. And Santa's mailbox is outside. In case the municipal building is closed, you can still put your letters in the box. It's been put outside, and I would say for the rest of the places to put their boxes outside so that the kids come in at night and they can still put their letters in the box, and they'll be sent to the North Pole. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. And yeah, I just want to thank municipal staff for everything they did, getting the budget, 2025 budget up and running. That starts up at the top with Alex and Josie, the department heads, some of them are here. And just as it works its way down, it's a lot of work to put a budget together. So kudos to everyone that put this document together. And thank you for the presentations this evening. Council still has some thought to do and some consideration between now and next Tuesday. And once again, anyone from the public that wants to address council, they'll have a chance next Tuesday at the public meeting. And also everyone's information is available on the municipal website as far as emails, phone calls. That your voice, it does matter to be heard and speak up. And, we have a lot of people in this community, and not very many seats are filled at this meeting tonight. But with that, I would like to seek a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, and good night. This meeting is adjourned.